Hello, everyone. Today on Freedom Powered, we will talk about Tesla's recent groundbreaking achievements, the most delicious air on the market, and how to put yourself in the zone on command. Enjoy.
All right. Another great episode, Nick. How have you been?
I've been all right. Are you excited for Halloween, Mason?
I am. It's actually not my favorite holiday, but I do know people that love it. I don't even
Dressing up
I
like
don't
things that you can't be or want to be?
I don't even know the last time I dressed up. It's kind of lame, but I mean I'm kind of lame. I think it's cool. Some people really get into it. I had a little Halloween get together thing, and some people had some cool outfits. I know one guy that he says that his favorite holiday is Halloween, and he has like $10,000 worth of decorations. I just don't know if I could get that into something.
He treats it like his Christmas.
Yeah, I guess. What have you had any cool Halloween costumes, Nick, from your past?
Uh, I think the costume I put the most effort into, like without my parents dressing me up when I was little, was probably I was one of the outsiders,
I don't know what that is.
like Pony Boy Soda Pop, the book.
I know, yeah, I know that book. Yeah. So you just
Yes,
dressed up as a greaser then?
yeah, but we tried to mimic their outfits
The
in the
movie.
movie. It was me and a group of friends.
Oh, that's cool. That's neat, Nick. Congratulations.
Yeah, what can I say? A
Um,
for effort.
Mine was I was like a bowl of spaghetti for like probably like 8 years straight. I think that was other than being a burrito one year, I think bowl of spaghetti was like the go-to. It's a very recyclable costume.
Well, the reason why we chose like greasers and all that is because we just went to Goodwill and we just bought like cheap leather jackets. We all own like a plain T-shirt. And we all own jeans. It was a very easy costume to do. I
Nice.
know we were cheapos,
Oh, I know. But
but
yeah,
we were just playing the part because greasers were poor too.
that's true. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even how what age do you stop trick-or-treating at?
There's like things you do on Halloween that are different as you grow up. Like when you're younger, you go trick or treating with your parents, and then you go trick or treating with your friends, and then you just hang out. I don't know. I stopped getting candy in like high school. Maybe I stopped going to houses to get candy.
That's a little old. I don't
Oh
I
no,
guess you look
like
like
in
it.
middle school I did it. I went with my friends, and it was fun stuff. In high
Yeah,
school, I kind of just stopped doing that.
I guess you looked like you were in middle school when you were in high school, so
That's true.
you could pass for.
For our listeners who can't see us, I look very young.
You know, I don't know.
Did you have a favorite candy bar?
I don't know if I have a favorite, but anyone who gets the cheap packs of candy, has things horrible with like nerds in them and stuff like that. Like, come on, you gotta be giving out chocolate at least. Everyone knew. I remember when we were younger, everyone knew which houses gave out the good candy. And they had
Yeah,
one.
like the king size bars.
Yeah, it's
It was like a plan. Like you see, I don't know. Like when I was younger, like I would say a lot of kids are smart for their age because like a lot of kids plan out like the route that they're gonna take when they go trick or treating. Like they know like we're gonna hit this house and then we'll go take these little small houses and then we're gonna hit this house. You know what I mean? A lot of logistical stuff went into it.
yeah. So some skills right there. Interesting. Uh, yeah, but today's episode, as you guys heard, is going to be pretty interesting. Uh, Nick's business mind was bustling, and he heard about Tesla's newest achievements and wanted to talk a little about that. So I guess we'll start there.
Yeah. Well, Tesla, they finally made a profit. I think it's their third quarterly profit that they've made. But I don't know. It's a big deal just because, or I think it's a big deal because a lot of people who look at these businesses like Tesla and all that think, oh wow, they're making tons of money, yada 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 yada. But they're not really making a lot of profit, but they're putting in a huge amount of work. And I think that says a lot about Elon Musk too. He literally risked everything on a couple of companies that aren't making profits, but they're valuable companies.
Right.
I don't know. I just think it's crazy. The company's existed for 15 years. They've only had 3 quarterly profits. This was like the first profit, I think, with Elon Musk running it.
Well, I think what's more interesting is two things. One, that it's an electric car company where, in most cases, I mean, just think about the general stigma of like a Prius. Everyone thinks they're lame, and I think they look ridiculous. And people will get them because they're hippies or whatever, and just be the. But no one's getting a Prius because they're cool. Like no one wants a Prius. People just drive Priuses because they're trying to like help the polar bears out or whatever. But Teslas, people want. Like it's like a nice car. Like there's a lot of people that would rather have a Tesla than a Ferrari. Like for them, it's like a Tesla is the next level. And I was listening to an interview with Elon, and he was talking about how our goal with Tesla is to make a car that people have fun with. It's supposed to be a joy to ride. And I know he said that they programmed like a dance in it. You can like push a button and it'll like do a bunch of turns on its own and like a dance. He said he engineered it after one of his favorite songs or something. And it's interesting that like how he's built a company that has such a high uh, image and is so wanted, and honestly, it's just such a good product. He didn't skimp. The Teslas are a badass vehicle, and then I don't know, something else that's interesting about him as a person is he's on the top list of richest people in the country, right? He has what is it? What was it? $20 billion or something like that.
Yeah, some crazy amount of net worth.
And it's just interesting because when you're talking about his company, like you just were saying, how it hasn't had a lot of profit, and you're thinking to yourself, there's got to be a lot of other bigger companies. How come they're not? Their leaders aren't billionaires? And I think the reason is because most companies are have been public for a long time. They have a lot of investors. So even if they are bigger companies, it's the risk and the reward is spread out amongst more people. But for Elon, like this is his company. This is his pet project. All of them are. This, SpaceX, all of them are something that he built personally. And I think that gives you a lot more credit than just saying, hey, we spread out the risk, had thousands of people all pitch in, and now we got a big company. No, this was him. This was him putting his personal cash on the line, and he still does it today. He still puts his personal money in to save his company. I know more than a couple times the Tesla has not been doing so hot, and he's sold his own personal stocks in order to keep it up and running. You know what I mean?
Yeah, in order to pay back the board.
All right.
Yeah, well, it just shows how passionate he is about this project. Like what you just said, it doesn't even seem like the money's like the important part to him. The important part is what he's doing.
Oh, he doesn't care about the money. I think that people have a misunderstanding of massively successful people, because let me put it to you like this. And some of you are going to disagree with me, and I'm sure you'll find a couple of cases where I'm wrong. But when people look at the rich and talk about people who just want money and want to live an opulent life, I think they're referring to people that have between, $1 million to like $100 million. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Celebrities, celebrities, you know what I mean? Musicians, actors, whatnot. Those people who are rich, yes, but they did it through some sort of fame or through some sort of, desire to have money. Yeah, they're all about the money. But, you know, at what point do you have enough? These people who are have billions of dollars and still work 12 hours a day on their business, they're not doing it because of the money. They have the money. They could have retired at any time. No, they're doing it because they love what they're doing. They love their business. They love, in Elon Musk's case,
Hmm.
trying to change the world. And it's a different perspective. You can't go on Elon Musk. And that's why I don't like when people go, like, screw you to the rich guys. Yeah, there's some rich people. There's a lot of them that might be assholes and might take advantage of other people and whatnot. But for most of the time, in order to actually make that amount of money, in order to make billions of dollars, your drive isn't money. Your drive is accomplishing whatever goal you have. It's building the business, it's expanding, you know what I mean? So
Hmm.
that's just one way to look at it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, another thing I thought was cool, just like they've gone so long without a profit, and there's a lot of people who out there who are afraid to put down a year of like full time effort, like as a side hustle, into something because they're afraid, oh, they're not gonna make enough money, or like, what's the point if I'm not gonna make any money the first or 2 years? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. It's
Like, why not just grind away for a year on the side and just like 1 year is not a long time
it's not. And what
compared to Tesla's 15 years.
right. And people look at that and they think, well, I want to be successful now. Yeah, you do. But telling me right now you wouldn't want to switch places with Elon Musk. You know what I mean? So if you see where he's at and you're in awe because of it, then you got to be willing to reinvest and to put in that work. It's not a conspiracy. You look at any even decent business, anyone that's like made it, anyone who's, the company's valued in the millions and they might have a net worth of a couple mil, one, two, whatever, a couple mil. You look at it and if you do some research on their company, there's very few that got big overnight. A lot of them started at least 10 years ago and were just really small until they made it happen. And I think that's something that a lot of people lose sight of. I mean, I think it's fun. I think that working on a business, even if for the first 5 years I'm not a millionaire, okay, so what? Isn't the whole point of Freedom Empowered is you find something that you enjoy? So you should be enjoying what you're doing anyways, and then the success comes after. That's the key here. Elon Musk is a nerd. He's a self-proclaimed nerd. This is what he loves to do. And if he made no money, he still would have been happy, but he happened to make money. You look at, I mean, I think you'd be very hard pressed to find a massively successful person whose sole motivation was money.
Yeah, no, I'd agree, especially in Elon's case, and I know there's lots of other companies out there that do similar things, but he's just trying to make the like he legit says this. He wants to make the world a better place,
Yeah,
and like his actions are to prove it, and not just make it a better place. He wants to advance it. He wants it to be the best it could be.
he wants to make it multiplanetary. He wants to give us another option in case we ruin this planet.
Oh, that's awesome stuff.
And think about that goal. Do you think he had that goal back when he was living in South Africa, making his first little video game that he sold for like $100 or whatever? I mean, you think his goal was to make this planet, make the human civilization multiplanetary? I don't know. But what if it was and he achieved it? What kind of goals can you make that are massively, incredibly big, and then you just start to chip away at it little by little, and then you make it halfway there? What is, let's say he made, even if he made it halfway there. I mean, if you think about it, he's less than halfway there. I would say he's less than halfway to making Mars an actually inhabitable planet. But he's look at where he is now. So make your goal, make it way too big, and maybe you're lucky to get halfway there, and it's still better than anything you would have done otherwise. You got to be conscious about your plans, about your goals. You got to wake up every day and know what you're going to accomplish. Because if not, time's just going to go by and you who knows? I mean, I was watching a video with Joe Rogan. I personally happen to like him. I know a lot of people dislike the Joe, but I think he's interesting. I understand what people's concerns are with him, which honestly I don't even, because at the end of the day, he's successful in his own right, in his own personal definition of freedom. He's very successful. And that might be what intrigues me about him. Everyone else goes, well, he's just a comedian and a talk show guy for UFC. He got lucky. I mean, okay, maybe he did. But in his life, he wins. You know what I mean? So maybe he's doing something that you don't want to do. Maybe you think that being a stand-up comedian is lame, but to him it's not, and he made it happen. So why are you even talking shit in the first place? And that was one of the things he talked about was, a lot of people who talk shit and act like they don't care. They say, I don't give a fuck. They usually are the ones who care the most, and they're the ones who are jealous of other people. And it goes into it. It's just human nature. Humans are made, human instincts, which a lot of people think that they don't exist, but they do. Human instincts is to survive. It's to be a hunter and gatherer and have a survival instinct and constantly be facing challenges every day and achieving them. And that's what stimulates us. That's what makes us happy. That's what we thrive for. And for people to not have that, that's why a lot of people are sad. There was like a study done about how many people are happy, and it was something like 67% of people are unhappy, and the question is why. In a life where our basic needs are provided for us for the most part, if you live in America, your basic needs, and I'm not talking like, oh well, there's people that are better than me. I'm talking food, water, shelter, air provided. You know what I mean?
Air's a big one.
Air's a big one. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But those are provided. So what are you really depressed about? And you know what it is? It's that you think that the goal is to just live an opulent life and just not be doing anything. I don't understand why not doing stuff is the goal for people. That doesn't work that way. In order to be massively successful, you have to enjoy and thrive to work to the point where you're just not the type of person who wants to just sit around and do nothing. You need to put challenges in front of yourself. There's no longer a challenge to find food anymore. So you have to create a new challenge. You need to wake up every day and say, what am I going to accomplish? And it can be small too. Nick has a list of just the little small things he does every day, of like just about his daily life. Like, do
Well,
tell him
well,
about
on my list, I even throw stuff on like have breakfast. You know what I mean?
it. Right.
Like eat breakfast, eat lunch, work out. Just a bunch of little tiny things that like, oh, why would you put that on a list? It's just you're chipping away at your day and you're getting stuff done when you need to.
Right. And that's how the brain works, and that's how you should be working too. I mean, we talk about it all the time, I'm sure, but that's one of the things that really grinds my gears is when people will have a job where, they have three calendars, seven spreadsheets, and a whole team of secretaries all planning out their day for this job. But then they come home and can't even, they just sleep till 3 p.m. because they can't even plan out how to like take control of their day on their day off. You know what I mean? Why are you going to invest so much time and effort to be productive at work and then come home and waste your time? I don't know. Interesting.
Very. Do you have a favorite billionaire, Mason?
I'd probably say Richard Branson. You guys know him, the Virgin America guy. He's interesting for a couple of reasons. Well, really, what makes him interesting is that he's fun. Like, there's a lot of these. He and this is he's actually different. He's different than Elon. He's different than Bezos because those guys really, really were into their work and they love it and they're kind of nerds. He's not. I think he was 35 before he even stopped work. He started out working at like a records company, not even a records company, like a store where they literally sell records. The big CDs, guys, for those you don't know. And he worked there till he was like in his mid 30s, and then he bought a store, then he bought another, and now he's like 68 years old, and he has 500 plus companies that he owns. And what intrigues me though is he does like fun things still because he grew up kind of differently. So he'll like go and still go skydiving and do all this crazy stuff and do all these extreme sports and really just live it up. And that's what's interesting to me is him who is just a different type of person. And also, it's really inspiring that, you know, this man didn't even start a business till he was in his late 30s or whatever. And it kind of goes to show that anyone can do anything at any time. You just have to start.
Yeah, that's a pretty good reason.
What about you?
Oh, I'm more of a Jeff Bezos fan. I don't know. I like how he sort of revolutionized an entire industry.
That's true.
It's sort of like how Ford revolutionized the car and like the assembly line.
Yeah.
He somewhat did that same thing, but for online stores and all that.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm into the whole changing the game thing.
Yeah. No, that's good. Well, while we're talking about changing the game and innovating markets, there's a whole new market on the street. How would you like to, how much would you pay to go back to your favorite outdoor escape? You know, I don't know. There's times when I'm like, I'd pay a lot of money just to be in. For me, there's a couple different places. I really like Yosemite. I like just national parks in general. Even the desert, though. You know what I mean? I spent a lot of time in the desert growing up. Like, and so some people would be like, I hate the heat. There's nothing to see out there. But for me, I'm like, it's so quiet. There's very few. That's one of the things that always sticks out to me is there's very few places in this world nowadays where there's actual silence, and in a desert, it's one of them. And it's sometimes it's a little bit eerie just not hearing anything because you're so used to hearing something like right outside my window. I can hear these cars right now, and your brain will start to block them out. But then when they're not there, it's kind of surprising and different.
Yeah, well, that's probably one of my favorite things about going out to nature, desert, the woods, wherever. You just you if you focus on hearing things, you hear like the tiny things. Like you may hear the bird, you may hear fuck like fucking squirrels just eating or something. You know what I mean?
Right. There was one time when we were out there and in the desert, and we were just hanging out, and like this pack of coyotes just run right through our camp, and it was freaky because they were. I mean, they weren't after us, but they were after something, and it was cool though. It's nature at its finest. But How about the fresh air? I think that's one of the best parts is just smelling clean air. It's kind of weird, isn't it? But you know what they say, like your sense of smell is one of the most strongest things you have. It's actually your nose is responsible for even a lot of what you taste. And you've all had that moment where you smelled, where you had where you smelled a familiar smell, and it like brought back memories because it's very tied. Your sense of smell is probably your strongest sense, and it can do things like that. Bring back a memory, and you're like, "Where's that? What's that from?" You know?
Mm-hmm. Or no, I love the fresh air smell. It's very refreshing, especially since the SoCal life with Los Angeles there. If you fly out of LAX, all the cars out there, like compare that to like going out and camping out in the woods.
Right.
It's like 100% different. The
Or,
smell is just fresher.
well, you know
You
what,
don't hear a bunch
Nick?
of honking.
You know what? I got a product for you. For a mere $32, you can have fresh air in a can from the Sydney Australian mountains, the Canadian Rockies, or if you're ritzy, I can get you a jar of Welsh oxygen for $170. Are you interested?
No, I'd rather just
Well,
go to these
some
places.
people are. It's actually a lot of people are. And that's what we're going to talk about next is this new created market for uh, air in a can. And you might think, who's going to buy this? And maybe not people like Nick. Nick's just a fake. Nick just thinks he likes good smelling air, but he's not willing to put his money where his mouth is. But there are places like China and India that have not quite as developed industries, and by that I mean they still use a ton of coal. Um, where the air is pretty bad, and there's people there that buy this canned air for a lot of money. I mean, of the top 500 cities with the worst air quality, China has 238 of them. There was a report of people saying that they couldn't even see their hand in front of their face. And it's true. You guys might not think it's a real thing. From what I've heard back in the day, maybe like 40 years ago, big cities like LA and New York used to be that bad, but then we started implementing regulations to clean up the air. But they don't have those regulations in China. And I remember when I flew through Beijing on my way to Thailand once, and it literally looked like The Walking Dead. You couldn't see it. You couldn't see anything. You couldn't see, and it was horrible. And it only gets worse in the winters when the coal plants are picking up. I don't know. I think I would just move. Is that an option for people? I feel like if you're going to, so let me get into how much it costs. It's supposed to, they say it costs 20 cents a breath, but essentially, if it's $32 and you get about 160 breaths per can, you know what I mean? So what? If these people really like fresh air that much, are they going through a can a day? And if they are, you know what I mean? Like how much money does that cost? Why would you not just move somewhere else? I don't know, freedom of
well,
movement.
well, I think a lot of people it's not financially stable for them to just pick up and move. Which is why we hammer on that too, having the financial freedom to do what you want. I think that plays a huge part in it.
Yeah, and you might not even be allowed to leave China. Are you allowed to move out of China if you're Chinese?
No idea.
I think they, I don't think they like to.
No, China is strict as hell. Like I remember reading something. This was probably 6 months back, but after the Chinese president declared himself lifelong president, he banned searching up Mao Zedong on the internet. So like nothing would pop up if you searched it.
Mm-hmm. That's what,
And anything about Animal Farm or anything bad with communism, he banned it from the internet.
that's wild. You know they're starting to assign Chinese citizens a number, a social number that says how much do you align with our government's ideologies, and then that'll go into um, whether or not you can get loans or different social programs, acceptances, and things like that. It's really 1984ish, and I'm not put on the tin hat.
Let me grab it.
No, but for real, it sounds like a conspiracy, but people don't realize how easily movements can be made, how easily things can happen. And that's one of the luxuries we have in America is that we do have a supposed to be a multi-party system. Now it's more of like a two-party system, but for as much as you hate the two-party system, it provides you some securities. If you're in a place like China with one party, one ruler, you know how quickly they can implement new policies, how quickly you can become a 1984 Orwellian society. It happens. You look at, I mean, how quickly did it happen in Soviet Russia, in Nazi Germany, in Pol Pot's Cambodia? You look at
Well, yeah. We'll just take Germany for example. It took them 10 years being in office. 10 years is a very quick time.
right. It's
That's like less than half of a generation.
right. So, for all of you out there who wants to play the sides game and wants to hate the other party here in America, well, at least you get to complain about people with other views than you, because there's some places where you're not allowed to have other views. And, you know,
Well, I just remember a quote, just like if you even look back at China just 20 years ago, they were somewhat still free, and it just reminds me of a quote that Ronald Reagan said that freedom's never one generation, or freedom's just one generation away from extinction.
it really is.
All it takes is just one person who wants all the power and tries to control everything.
And that's one of the issues with today's society here in America is that we have arguably the most rights that we've ever had. You know what I mean? For all sorts of different reasons. There was things that in America's past, you know, we had to build up to, whether it's civil rights or it's um, many other things that I don't have a list of in particular. But we had to fight for rights. You know, there's been amendments to the Constitution. There's been changes, and we have more rights now than ever before, I would say. And what people don't realize is they don't realize the fight that we had to gain these rights. They don't they didn't have to personally march for rights. They didn't have to personally go out there and you know, work to change the system. So what people are doing now is arguably they're willing to forego some of our basic rights in order to value, in order to have more security. They'd say, you know what I mean? There's
Mm-hmm.
this isn't a left or right argument because it happens on both sides. Because if you really look at it, government is government, regardless of which policies they're supporting on both sides. What are they really doing? They're really getting more control. And it's going to be, you know, for half of the country, they're going to be happy when one party is implementing one set of policies. And for the other half of the country, they're going to be happy when the other party is implementing their policies. But either way, what's happening? You know, the government is angling to get more control over your daily life.
Yeah, well, like it doesn't really. At the end of the day, both parties are almost identical.
People don't want to hear that, but it's, it's true.
I don't know. Well, we'll just since midterms are coming up, I personally want the Democrats to take control of the House,
Yeah.
and then Republicans keep the Senate. So then at that point, it's just nothing happens.
So you're saying that you'd rather the both parties just stalemate each other than have one be in control and be able to actually enact policies?
Yeah. That with one party that has control over every branch, that's how bad shit happens.
Right. It's interesting. It's an interesting concept. I think that everyone can agree that our political system is deeply flawed, and uh, I think one of the issues there, the same thing with what I was just talking about, is people might people might see that it's flawed, which is a good thing because the government's made up of people just like you and me. So if you see that it's flawed, but the default is what people say, well, I'm just going to stay out of it. I'm just not going to vote. I'm going to just ignore the whole thing. And it's true. Like, for most people's lives, they might not be deeply affected by the government. But I think the first step is to realize it's flawed. But then a lot of people get off the train there and say they're just going to stay out of it. But the second step is go, okay, it's flawed, but in all reality, the government is still controlled by the people voting wise. So you get out there and vote, and you get out there and vote your conscience, you know, what might happen? Maybe we can change things. I think that's one issue is people don't vote for what they want because they don't vote their conscience because we have such a divisive two-party system now that people have to pick a side. I mean, if you think about it, how many people even that vote even spend 10 minutes looking up the policies of someone that is running? Not very many.
I would say most voters are uninformed.
But I'd have no problem voting for either side. Like, I don't. We just need it. We need to not see it as pick a side. We need to see it as all right. Who's running? There's two people. Let's pick one. You know what I mean? Let's
Well,
pick the
yeah,
one.
like two people running. Let's look at what they both want to do, and whichever one will make my life better, vote for. That's
Because
what people should be doing.
right. Because the problem is we've created such a two-party system nowadays that if you want to be a politician who gets elected, you have to pick a party. You know what I mean? You have to pick a party even to stand a chance of getting elected. So what that means to me is that there's people who don't hold the values 100% of the party that they're running with, but just running with that party because it gives them the best chance to get elected. So what does that mean though? That means that they all have different values. So instead of looking at it and going, well, I'm normally a Republican or I'm normally a Democrat, so I'm going to vote with that party. Why not just look at what the people that are running their policies and then go based off of that?
Well, yeah, I've talked to people. They're like, "Oh, I'm a lifelong Republican or a lifelong Democrat." I'm like, and depending on how old they are, I'm like, well, so you just picked them because of a letter next to their name,
Right.
Because they've changed over the past 20 years.
The
Both
parties have
don't believe in the
changed.
same.
Right.
Yeah,
The party,
they don't
even what
believe
the
in the same
parties
things they did
stand
back
for
then.
changes. Yeah, right. You should be voting based on what helps you the most. There's a whole bunch of things to balance. There's balance social reform, economics, foreign policy, all of it. You should be voting based on the policies, not the party. But, I don't know. I guess my challenge to our listeners right now is one, vote, and then two, spend 10 minutes using the Google machine to see what the candidates actually stand for before you vote for them. Because I'd be hard pressed, especially to the people that listen to this show who are going out of their way to learn and you know, broaden their minds. I'd be hard pressed to think that even if you think that you're a certain party, that if you do some research, you might not flip on a couple of your choices here and there over the next 60 years of your life. So, yeah, I'd say go for that. But we went way off tracks there.
Yeah. Back to bags of air.
So we talked about the air. We talked about how expensive it is. We talked about how um, that it's a new market. Basically, it's a new market that people are actually buying into. The markets are created because of the customers. You know what I mean? So I think I think the moral of the story here is we went over part one. There's actually air bad enough in the world where people want to buy cans of fresh air, like out of an Austin Powers movie. But I think the second part here is these two guys created a new market. One of the companies, in particular, the one that ships the air out of Canada, Troy Paquette and Moses Lam. So they were mortgage specialists up in Canada. You know what I mean? I don't know of a more generic job, a more generic lifestyle than being a Canadian mortgage specialist. That just sounds extremely anticlimactic. It sounds straight up boring. It sounds like just an off brand job, not to be mean.
Well,
But,
like when you're at work, the most exciting thing is when you guys get a new copier.
right. And these dudes probably, you know, if anything, what does it show? That these are normal dudes. These guys are normal. They're not special. I mean, we'll talk about how they're special, but they're normal. They grew up and became mortgage specialists in Canada. They're regular dudes. Probably didn't take that much risk. Probably didn't have that many good ideas, and probably weren't the smartest or the strongest. And so they're living a life. Good old Canadian life, comfortable. And one day they thought it would be funny to go to the Rockies, put air in a Ziploc baggie, and sell it on eBay. And guess what? Someone bought it for $130. Today, they have a $65,000 machine that pumps 21 bottles of air a minute and ships all over the world. In 2017, they sold $200,000 worth of product. And that's up from 2015, where they sold $30,000. So, oh, and then, those. My bad. Let me rephrase that. So 200,000 bottles up from 30,000 bottles. So money wise, they went from about $980,000 to 6.5 million in sales. What does that mean? I think it means, one, business is freeing, because what business is you literally pick an industry that you want to get into, or you create your own industry and you can make money off it. And so business might be the best way to do whatever it is that you want to do and then still be successful in it. And two, it just, I don't know, it shows that the level of achievement you can reach is unlimited. Think about that. If you think about how many jobs can you work and go from $980,000 to 6.5 mil in 2 years? You don't get a raise like that. Your employer doesn't go, "Oh, here's your raise." You know what I mean?
Here's a multi-$100,000 raise.
Right. So, I mean,
You have to get it yourself.
right. But what did they do? One, they had a unique idea. They didn't let anyone tell them that it was a stupid idea. I mean, they did. I'm sure people did, but they didn't let it stop them. And they took risks to get there. At some point, they had to have not been making that much money and then bought this $65,000 machine. So they have a $65,000 investment and into an idea that probably most people laughed at them about. and it worked. You know what I mean? But if that doesn't motivate you enough, what should motivate you is that they started as a mortgage specialist. They weren't special per se. They weren't geniuses per se. They simply had an idea, probably said, I'm bored with my life. There's no way I can be a mortgage specialist for the rest of my life. And let's go for it. Let's take some risk. So I'm sure a lot of you have step one down. You probably have a job that you hate. So there's step one, check. What's step two? Have an idea. Is step two have an idea? So I think that working towards an idea and having the idea can be interchangeable. You can either have an idea and then start working towards it if you just have an idea that you've always wanted to do, but you just haven't found the motivation or the drive to do it. But on the other side of it, if you don't even have your idea yet, that's probably because you're living a stagnant life where you're not working on yourself. So what can you do then? You can start to learn things. You can start to learn about different things. You could learn about the economics. You can learn about business, entrepreneurship. You could read. You could write. You could just pick something, pick anything to turn that brain back on, flip that switch. And then from there, you can you'll find an idea. I mean, I know you will. And if not, there's enough people in this world to where you can start a business that already has been created. You can just steal someone's idea and still make it. Yeah? You just have to find the customer base, and that's what these guys did. There's nothing off limits. There's somebody out there, there's a lot of people out there that are interested in whatever it is that you're trying to sell, no matter how weird or how out of the ordinary it is. You just have to find a way to make it happen, to monetize your dreams.
Yeah, exactly. And
what's one of the best ways to do that? This is where we're going to talk about in our Freedom Empowered Free Thinking section, number 4. Nick will kick it off.
So for today's Free Think segment, we're going to talk about just consistency, having a flow. So like, start off with an example. Like if you work out 4 days a week and you work out hard and you need breaks in between, in a year you'll get 208 workouts in that year. And if you don't go as intense, you can get theoretically 354 workouts in a year.
If you work out 7 days a week.
Yeah, 7 days a week.
And a lot of people, so that's the point here, is a lot of people will crush themselves 3 days a week, 4 days a week. 1, they're not enjoying it. And 2, they might be getting injured or might be pushing it too hard. And then they have to take days off. But consistency beats intensity. You're going to get way more out of, you can get 148, 146 extra workouts in if you work out every day. So instead of trying to work out for 2 hours in one day, where you're going to end up burning yourself out and slacking off, why don't you work out super hard for a half hour, 45 minutes every day? Who doesn't have a half hour, 45 minutes every day? And another thing is, you'll enjoy it. That's one of the keys to this whole consistency thing, is having fun, keeping it fun. And I do this a lot of the time now too. I used to be an athlete, some might say, not really anymore. So how do you keep yourself in shape and motivated to work out? Especially, well, one, I would say have a goal. So do some sort of competition, whether it's just run a marathon or do like a bodybuilding competition, whatever it is. One way is to have a goal. But another way is have fun with it. I hate running. It's literally my least favorite thing. But what I'll do now is instead of going out there and going, well, I need to run, 5 miles a week. So I'm going to go on like a 3 mile run or like a 5 mile run. You know what I mean? That's horrible. So what I'll do is every day I'll get out there for 20 minutes and it usually ends up around, 2 miles. I mix in sprints and whatnot. And yeah, right if I think, hey, I'm not having fun anymore, this sucks, I stop. And part of it's probably because I'm mentally weak. But the other part is, you know what I mean? If I push myself through that and I'm doing something that I hate, then the next day it's harder for me to get out of bed and go out and work out because I have that memory from the day before where it wasn't fun. But if I keep having fun with it, then I can keep pushing myself. And that's what this flow thing all about. It's a balance between pushing yourself intensity wise, but being consistent and having fun with it. Don't burn yourself out. And you can translate it to anything. Bettering yourself should be enjoyable. It should be motivating, and you should be doing it every day.
Well,
So
I feel like another thing about this, like just being consistent. When you're having fun with it, you start being more consistent, and that's building habits. Now, 3 years down the road, using Mason's example, you're running a mile every day, not because you want to. It's just become a habit, and it's no longer like dreadful.
right, yeah, and you can translate it to literally anything. If you're got that big new idea and you're trying to start your own business or something like that, if you work 24/7 and you don't sleep, you're not eating right, you don't spend time with your friends or your family, you're gonna burn out. And that's one of the things that's interesting about when you translate it to other parts of your life is to be successful. They say that it could take between 3 to 5 years, and I agree with that. If you want to build a legitimate business, it might take 5 years to do. So don't just work every day 24/7, don't sleep, and think you're going to make it in 3 months because. And then what happens is when you don't make it in 3 months, you go, well, I'm not seeing very much progress. I'm just going to quit. You know what I mean? A lot of people do that. They go,
Yeah.
well, maybe my idea wasn't so good after all. And that's not the move. If you build habits, you work consistently, you work an hour a night, a little bit of research, a little bit of planning, a little bit of work into knock out two or three things that you made a list of that morning or throughout the day on your side hustle. One, you're going to see way more progress, and two, you're going to be building habits so that when it does come down to maybe picking up your work or just being consistent, you have the habits built. When me and Nick first started working on all of our side projects and our business ideas, it was weird. It was weird at first. You know, we'd be like, okay, well, we're dedicating this whole Saturday to uh, working on this, and it was hard. But now we have a habit built up to where it's a standard for us to sit down and work, and we become more efficient, so we can just uh, get to work for a couple hours. It's not a big deal.
Well, yeah. Well, like I would just, in my personal experience, when I was doing the real estate course for to become a real estate agent, at first I was trying to just bust it out all out, like spend hours and hours in a day, and that just kind of got, it was kind of a lot. You know what I mean? Where then I broke it down to, all right, I'll do 5% of the class each day,
Right.
and it was enjoyable. I learned, the memory stayed in my mind longer.
It's true. That's another thing. It is very true. Your brain will pump and dump. It happens all the time. But if you make it consistent, you'll uh, remember more. I know that's probably one of my downfalls from school is I would do the don't do any homework, don't study until the night before a test. And that's why I don't remember anything from school. Whereas there's people who remember everything because they would study like an hour or two every night. You know? Something that I'm gonna
Mhm.
have to come back for. What a waste of an education. But yeah, it's true. I don't know. It's just getting into that flow, getting into that zone. And you guys think we're probably crazy, but you should try it. Try it. Try eating healthy 3 nights a week. Try working out 3 nights a week. Try sitting down and working on your side hustle a couple hours a week and just see the progress that you make. You know, you gotta get out there. You gotta have a well-rounded life because it doesn't matter how good of an idea you have, how good of a product that you have. If you're just a workaholic who's angry and boring and unhealthy, no one's gonna buy your product from you unless it's
Unless it's a bag of air.
unless it's a bag of air, in which it's one of your basic needs. So then I'm sure someone will. But one of the things with the air that really freaks me out is what if they were like, what if they made it right now? We go, okay, well, they're selling air, but air's free, so you can just like have free air. But what if because they have the ability to sell air, that like the Chinese government continues to pollute their air to the point where it's actually uninhabitable, and then thereby forcing their citizens to have to buy the air? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that would take some conspiracy stuff, making
Uh,
a deal with the government.
I'm
Like,
just
hey,
saying
destroy your air so we can make tons of money and we'll give you some.
that's that sounds
It's not impossible.
that's happened with other that's happened with the oil industry. All right, that's enough of that. No more conspiracies for today. That's actually about it for um, this episode. Thanks for talking, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for talking to me, Nick. It was a good episode. Guys, if you like what we're doing here, go ahead and give us a shout out on Facebook. Join our Facebook group or just send us a private message. We've had a few. We've had 2 or 3 people uh, who wanted to talk, but for those of you that are out there that might have an idea, might need some work on, me and Nick would be happy to help you with your ideas and to help you empower your own freedom and uh, live the life you always want to live. But anyways, thanks again and keep up the hard work.